With the release of Dying Light 2, I've put some hours into the game now, and I thought, you know what, it'll be fun to make a video on this, so I'm going to be giving some tips for those new people that are playing the game, since it is quite different from the first one. If you want any more Dying Light 2 content on the channel, let me know, and I hope that these tips are useful whether you're just starting the game, or even near the end. Starting off with our first tip, this is going to be how you use your inhibitors. You're going to get very familiar with these inhibitors very early in the game. What these inhibitors do is if you collect 3 of them, you'll be able to level up either your health or your stamina, and whichever you choose is obviously gonna improve it. Now this is Dying Light, so what I'm gonna recommend is just put this in stamina. There are so many more reasons to put inhibitors into stamina more than health, or at least for the early game. Although if your playstyle is just to be an absolute juggernaut and just health focused and you just prefer that, then you should do that. But I really do think that you should put your inhibitors a few levels higher in stamina than your health. Early on, there are going to be jumps that you just can't make because of your stamina, and climbs that you won't be able to reach, and it really can get you killed a lot of the time. It's pretty obvious to me that Techland put way more emphasis on stamina than they did in the first one, although it is important in the first one. But another reason is the paraglider. You need stamina to use that, and the longer you can go with the paraglider, the easier traversal is going to be for you. It's going to be one of your best mates during this game, so you're going to be wanting to make sure that you can use it for as long as you need. The next tip here is something that I wish I did even sooner than when I did it, and this is to get the roll recovery ability in the stamina skill tree as soon as possible. The amount of PTSD flashbacks I have to my early game where I would be jumping off of buildings and expecting to land fairly safely, and then just completely splattering on the ground is just unreal. The fall damage in this game, it is nowhere near as punishing as it is in the second game. You will be surprised at how much fall damage you take and how easy it is to die from the height you're jumping from. The roll recovery, although it doesn't completely solve this issue, it really helps. The safe landing skill is also going to be able to help out with this one. It combines well with the roll recovery, and the safe landing skill essentially increases the height from which you can land before taking any damage. I promise you, you're gonna thank yourself when you get these. The third one is a really simple one, but with the new parkour system and how punishing it can be at times, I feel as though it's a good idea to maybe just take some time to practice making some jumps and testing out the abilities that you unlocked. There was an ability at one point I got in my game, which is like a double jump, where when you vault, if you press the jump button again, you jump higher up into the air. I got this and I just forgot to use it. I didn't really know when I could use it, and I remembered that it existed and I kept trying to use it, and it has honestly saved me in some really tricky situations, as well as helped me get around faster. And when you're putting skill points into things you don't use that much, it does suck, and so you don't really want to find yourself in that situation. I've noticed that after you put some time into the game, you're gonna know what kind of jump or move to make, and it'll just be like second nature. So I'm just gonna recommend doing some side missions or something, practicing your parkour on the way, and you'll get a better idea of what jumps you can and can't make, as well as how climbable and easily traversal some of the environment is. You can even do parkour challenges around the map, which are not only fun, but if there's any good way to practice, it's definitely them. I know it sounds obvious, I know it sounds silly, but I really do think that it is worth doing. For the next tip, we're going to be talking about weapon durability. There's a really cool little way you can actually increase the durability of your weapon, and in Dying Light 2, just for a quick heads up for the new players, unlike the first game where you could repair your weapons with metal parts and you would have a set amount of repairs for that weapon, in Dying Light 2 it is just a one and done type of thing. If the durability bar goes down for a weapon and it breaks, the whole thing is just gone, and you don't get a certain amount of repairs on a weapon. And although some weapons do last a generous amount of time, you can in fact increase the lifespan of what you're wielding. And this is where weapon mods come in and not only give you a cool fire effect or a cool electric effect, but you can use these mods to restore some of the durability on whatever it is you put them on. And so I would say wait till about halfway through using your weapon without any mods if you're wanting to put a weapon mod on as soon as possible, so you get the most out of it, and then you put the weapon mod or multiple mods on and you repair that durability and overall get some more use out of a good weapon. You'll find this gets really useful in the later game as well because of how powerful weapons end up being, and so for those raw damage damage stats, you're going to want to get the most out of it. You'll find you won't end up doing this for every weapon because unless you're doing a duplication glitch, weapon parts aren't exactly as common and easy to find as they were in the first game. You're probably going to run out of materials to make these mods if you're doing it constantly, so maybe try and use this for your best weapons, the ones you really don't want to let go of just yet, and you want to preserve them for as long as possible. Which leads us into our fifth tip, which is to go on looting trips for parts so you can make those weapon mods. But even outside of weapon mods, looting trips are going to be really good if you're looking for valuables to sell to a shop, or to craft healing items, lockpicks, firecrackers, grenades. Everything is going to cost materials unless you buy it. Remember to check things like rooftop groves, military airdrops that you can find around the map, and inside buildings, and you can start stocking up on plenty of loot and resources from there. Rolling on to the next tip, this is to not forget about those damn binoculars. I forget about these things a lot. You realize that they're more to help you than they are to hinder you, especially when you go onto the other map that's set in like a city and there's really tall buildings, even skyscrapers. Getting on top of one of those bad boys and just getting out the binoculars and scouting around is going to be really helpful to you for not only looting, but for finding windmills a bit easier, setting markers, and just kind of have a bit more spatial awareness of your area. Those rooftop groves I mentioned earlier, where you can find the honey and chamomile, I think that's how you pronounce it, those flowers that let you craft healing items. You'll be able to find them so much easier if you just whip out the binoculars and set a marker. So remember, don't forget them binoculars. Before you venture out at night, stock up on the UV shrooms for the immunity boosters. Notice how I said for immunity boosters, because if you just eat the raw UV shrooms, they're not really gonna do anything for you. Whereas an immunity booster is gonna instantly refill that meter that represents your infection level. The infection level being how long you can stay in dark areas before you need to run to a UV lamp or get some sleep and have it be daylight. It doesn't matter how early or late you are in the game, these are something that you're always going to be needing, considering that nighttime and dark places in general are something you're gonna have to face in the game. I can't emphasize this enough, do not waste those UV shrooms just eating them on their own. It's only gonna cost you 2 chamomile and 2 UV shrooms for an immunity booster, and so just using 2 shrooms on their own is gonna be nothing compared to what you could invest them into. And once you get a steady supply of these going, you'll be able to have enough immunity boosters to just last huge chunks of time. You can't really neglect these, it is just a core part of the game, it's something you're always going to need, so try and stock up as early as possible. Moving on, there is a military outpost which has meds, grenades, and other loot, which is really good to know early on. And the best part about it is it's got some really good loot in it, and it's right next to the bazaar. The bazaar is the hub that you spend most of your time in early game on the first map. The city of Villador is full of these military outposts, but this one being so convenient early game, and to go back and forth to, since you'll be going back to the bazaar and then maybe out on a mission, and so you can just keep coming back here occasionally, makes it a pretty convenient place to loot every once in a while, and especially early on you can get some really good gear. Me and my friend were playing it, and when we went here we got 3 grenades each, a military med kit, and some really cool stuff that you have to use the GRE key to unlock the door. There was just a bunch of gear in there as well. It was a really good find, and although the loot is randomized in Dying Light 2, I'm sure you're going to get something that is worth going there for. It's fairly easy to clear out, and I don't think it would hurt to look. Like I said, there's more of these around Villador, but I do recommend if you're just starting, just go into this one, and then later on in the game when you want really powerful weapons, go to these places, they will hook you up. A tip worth mentioning here is that vendors in this game feel like such an improvement and just more helpful overall than they did in the first game. Not only can you get some good weapons from them, but also it's a really good place to dump the valuables you find and just sell them and get some extra coin. And if you're tired of looting the same broken shovel weapon or table leg, then definitely go to a shop. I'm sure you've probably collected a bunch of valuables. I forgot to sell mine. I got like 3,600 gold or something, and that was the first time I did that in my game. And you can bet that I did splash that cash on some really good upgrades and weapons, and it helped me out so much, and it didn't feel like I was just wasting my money on stuff. And if you don't want to do the looting, you can buy materials from here, and that is also a big help. So when you're in a safe zone, don't just pass by shops. If you got the money or the valuables to sell, go have a look. You might find something that is worth buying. For tip number 10, this is going to be your best mate that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the paraglider, and this is going to be a cool little maneuver I've noticed you can do with it. So the paraglider is mainly used for jumping off of a high building and gliding around the map, and that's great, but there is also a short distance use I've noticed you can use it for, and that is if you're making a jump onto another rooftop and you can't quite just make it. If you start deploying the paraglider, you'll actually start floating a little and you'll be able to make the jump. Think of it as like an extension to your jump distance. You do have to time it right, but when you do, it's really satisfying, and this has saved me a lot of fall damage even with roll recovery. It's just one of those little things about the paraglider that makes it so good on top of all the other things. But definitely try and get familiar with that paraglider jump. It's going to be so useful to you if you can nail it down, I promise you. Onwards to tip number 11. This is to study the faction rewards very carefully. You can actually check all of these whenever you want if you just go onto your map and then zoom outwards, and then it'll show up at the bottom of your screen and it shows you which ones you have as well. You can pick between peacekeepers and survivors, and I've got to be honest, I'm going to recommend going with the peacekeepers. They just offer way better stuff than what the survivors offer. The survivors only really offer traversal, which is great, and I am all for traversal, but once you get the paraglider and the grapple hook, you are going to find that you might not need all of the survivors traversal stuff as much as you may think you do. However, that is just an opinion. If that is something that you really want to do, go for it. There is some really good stuff that the survivors offer, but I've got to be honest, I don't think it compares to the peacekeepers because of how the peacekeepers have car traps, electric fences. They even have a trap that is like the flogger from COD Zombies, which is so cool. And as for their magnum opus of that faction tree, they have a crossbow, and you only get it, I think it's like halfway or like under halfway. You get it pretty quick. Reloads really quick, and you're given elemental bolts to craft, and it deals a hefty amount of damage. For real, this crossbow is so good. Oh, and did I also mention that it has a full holographic / red dot sight type of thing going on? It's a really fun weapon to use, and the closest thing you're gonna get to a non-breakable gun within Dying Light 2. And as for the final tip, you're gonna want to upgrade your gear. You can do these by going to craft masters at safe zones, and these allow you to upgrade all of your blueprints, such as that one fire mod you have, or even things you're gonna be using all the time like lockpicks and healing items, which I really recommend upgrading them. But if there's anything you should focus on upgrading, I would say your paraglider. It is just so good when it's upgraded. Gives you that boost in momentum. It's so good. You're gonna need this military tech, which you can get from airdrops, but upgrading not just the paraglider but gear in general is going to be a huge help to you from the very start of your game to the end of your game. And the more stuff you upgrade, the more benefits you get out of it, such as lockpicks. You can do a force lock on certain lock difficulties depending on how much you upgrade it. So as you're going about your daily Aiden business in Dying Light 2, try and take some time to look at a craft master, see what the requirements are to upgrade like the paraglider or any other gear for that matter, and maybe try going to get the stuff, because trust me, you'll really be doing yourself a favor. And that has been 12 tips and tricks for Dying Light 2. I hope that these helped, and if they did, then be sure to smash the like button. If you want any more Dying Light 2 content, I'd be more than happy to make some. Just let me know in the comments below. Comment any tips and tricks of your own that you feel like you wish you knew earlier. And only a very small percentage of people are subscribed to the channel, so if you've made it this far, subscribe, you won't regret it. Turn on the notification bell too to stay notified whenever I upload a video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.